The reason why we bootstrapped ultimately started from the goal that we set for this business. Me and my co-founder were quite atypical in that we there's this iconic scene in Breaking Bad where Walter White said at the very start of their business, their meth business, that as soon as we make like $750,000, I'm done because that's all I need to pay off all of my debts, right? They had a goal and Jesse was like, I'm going to do that with you. And there's an iconic scene where they're screaming at each other, 2 seasons later. And Jesse's like, you said you would stop at 750,000. And Walter's like, but there's so much more money to be made. And I just remember watching that and being like, screw that. That is awful. Co-founder conflict, getting greedy, running your business for the wrong reasons, all of these different types of things. And when me and my co-founder sat down, we joked about that. And I said, well, what do you want to achieve? Like, what do you want to do here? And Kara said, like, I don't know if this is my life's work, but I want to make sure that we have a fantastic outcome and that I have enough to kind of retire and things like that. And I said, that's exactly what I want to. And my retirement number is this. And it was maybe $6 or $7 million US. And Kara said, that sounds great. I 100% don't need any more than that either. Let's make that our number. And so we immediately wrote down in a book that Hamish and Kara are building a $20 million business.
Hi, welcome to the show. If this is your first time here or you are a returning listener or viewer and you haven't done so yet, hit the like and subscribe button down below. Be much appreciated. And of course, if you're very intrigued with regards to what's happening in the startup scene, definitely hit that like and subscribe button down below, and I hope you look forward to the show. Welcome to another episode of From Garage to Growth. I'm your host, Brian, and on today's episode, I'm joined by Hamish. Hamish is the co-founder and CEO of Order Editing. And on today's episode, we're going to explore e-commerce, specifically through the lens of post-purchase and order editing. And as usual, we'll explore his entrepreneurship journey and try to get in as much juicy information from him as possible. Before we kickstart the conversations, I'd like to give you the floor, introduce yourself, and let the audience know who you are, man.
Yeah, thanks, O'Brien. I'm the 23-year-old co-founder and CEO of orderediting.com. We're an e-commerce software startup, and we built this company maybe 18 months ago now, and we're doing a couple $1 million of revenue a year. We've got a team of 6 or 7, and we built this incredible technology that frankly I can't believe didn't exist sooner as well. Like, we were very lucky to stumble on this opportunity, and that customers, when you buy things from online stores, you don't get the opportunity to be able to make a change after you purchase. It's a locked away box and you have to reach out to customer service. We've been putting that power back into the customer's hand and letting people edit orders themselves after they buy something online. And it's turned out to be extremely valuable for the e-commerce brands that we sell it to. And we're having a lot of fun doing it as well.
So I just want to take us back before order editing became a thing, before you became a founder yourself. You touch a lot within the articles that I've read about you with regards to how important your family is, specifically looking at your brother and how his dedication at a young age kind of shaped your view of how the world operates a little bit. Can you kind of take us back to that period? What specific moments did you observe that solidified your desire to pursue entrepreneurship, and how has that kind of confirmed or shaped your view as a founder, your view as a person within the startup scene?
Yeah, I mean, I've always looked up to my oldest brother and both of my brothers, but my oldest brother in a certain type of way ever since I was a little kid. He has a very different personality. He's the most creative person in our family. He's very humorous. He's got these interesting hobbies and niches, and he was just slightly different to the majority of people that I knew, or that what our family were like, or the people that we went to school with. And that actually, I remember a visceral moment was he dropped out of the high school that we all went to and went to a different type of school to get a different type of education that would suit his needs better. I remember being 10 or 11 and visiting the school that he was going to, and immediately feeling like I wanted to go there too. Even though that school wasn't designed for me. That school wasn't necessarily built for how I did fit in quite nicely at a normal, ordinary style school. But it was one of those moments that I reflect on now that I'm older, and I realized that some of the qualities that maybe make him a little bit different, I have those too on a slightly lower level. I've always felt a little bit of, and not to call him weird, but I've always felt a little bit of a weirdo, or a little bit just different and not super typical, very typical in some senses, but then there are these weird things on the outskirts of my personality or my being.
Yeah.
And I've kind of followed, like, I've just loved seeing him be entirely himself and be so different and not be a sheep and follow everyone else, but instead do his thing and do it extremely well. And I think when he turned 18, he started studying at university or college, and then ultimately dropped out of college because he was making YouTube videos on the internet. He was posting videos of him doing gaming with his friends. I looked at that and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Here is my oldest brother going against the norm, definitely not doing what everyone has told him to do always and what everyone else is doing. And he was crushing it. Like, he was absolutely killing it. And I had two things, right? It showed me that a different type of path is possible. If I've got the same genetics as this guy, I've had the same nurture, and I think we're pretty similar, maybe then I'm built to do those things too. And it's okay if I want to do something different. And also, one of the things that I think is most important at that timeline is very few people when they're growing up have someone that they know at that early age that sees an abundance of success. Because so few people in their early 20s rarely kill it. And by kill it, I mean, Cam has like 5 million subscribers on YouTube now. He makes a fantastic living on that. He's genuinely an internet celebrity, for lack of a better word. Like, he genuinely did kill it. And very few people when they're growing up can have a role model as close as that. We all follow influencers, but they feel like years away and they feel very different too, because they don't really know what they're like. I had an idol of mine that was also my older brother, and he was in arm's reach of me all the time. Proved to me that you could be really successful at a young age. And I guess I saw what that meant for him, and I just wanted to replicate it for myself too. I wanted that for me. It was clearly possible. Clearly you could do it. And so I just started getting deeply obsessed about how I could make sure the same things happen to me. And that's kind of been, yeah.
And I think that's amazing to have someone that close proximity to you to be like, oh, this is the roadmap. And you speak about this going against the grain, not being traditional. You went full time at the age of 23 with your startup. How did that initially start for you? Did you have any self-doubt initially with regards to, like, am I doing the right thing at the early stage? And how did you kind of stop those voices at the early stage of your journey?
Yeah, I mean, we actually built the first version of this product when I was 21 and I was working my first job. And I had the idea for it, and we built the software. And, the self-confidence to go full-time on it, or even the logical background to go full-time on it, wasn't there at the end of that year. At the end of that year, I finished that job and I was looking out on the job market, and I could have gone full-time there. It would have been financially irresponsible, and it would have been mentally irresponsible because I don't think I was ready for what I was about to go through, right? That I'm going through now. Yeah. And I guess that was one of those moments where I was finishing up this job. I had this product and I had it on my CV. I knew it was valuable. I knew it was cool. I'm going to sell this to recruiters. But I ultimately decided that the path right now is not to go start a business. The path right now is to find another job to save my pennies so that ultimately when I am ready to go full time on this, I don't need to raise money and I can financially support myself for potentially 6 months or 8 months of no income. And also I felt like I was missing some like very clear skills to be able to build, market, sell, and start this company. And so I found a software startup with a fantastic founder that was happy to mentor me, and a fantastic head of sales that had 15, 16 years of experience in the industry. And I pretty much said to them, hey, like, I want a new opportunity. I need to be mentored. I need to know how to sell. I need to learn how to build a business because this is something that I've got on the background. And very fortunate for me, they were lucky to give me that. And that was the first moment, right? I guess that test of self-confidence. But I don't think it actually was that, because I still to this day don't regret taking another year before starting. I'm glad I waited because I learned so much in that 12 months, so much more than I would have if I was on my own.
Yeah.
And ultimately, at the end of that year, I then hit that inflection point. Our company was out on the market. It was a side hustle. It had just started to earn a little bit of income. And I'd had 12 months of just rapid growth on a personal skills level. And at that point, I had complete conviction that I was ready. I was like, I'm ready to do this. Let's go. But equally, it was so unfounded because you can't comprehend what building a business is going to be like. It's very weird as soon as you stop earning a paycheck and you're suddenly responsible for generating your own dollars and for coming up with creative ideas on how you're going to get from here to there, to there to there. make people care about what you do, whether you're trying to hire them or you're trying to sell to them or trying to network with them. Like it's just a ball game that you can't play until you start playing it, and you naturally get better over time. Like that was what I did. I did hit this point where I thought I could go do it now, and ultimately I decided not to. And I'm glad that I took more time to upskill and that I used the next 12 months incredibly intensely on upskilling with this goal in mind.
Yeah, and preparing yourself for the journey. And this preparing yourself for the journey, it's the other thing that about you specifically that I was like very intrigued about. So in the startup scene, there's this conversation around burnout, depression. You took a very preemptive outlook of this, where you started therapy very early in your journey. And you spoke about being ready for this journey. Why did you specifically start with therapy very early, and how has that shaped your journey of being a founder?
Yeah, I mean, it was that desire to go to therapy was predominantly shaped by my older brother again, and the books that I was reading. He could afford to go to therapy, and he was going to therapy. And I always, when I saw that and I talked to him about it because I was curious, and luckily he was very open about the experience with me. He just spoke about it in a beautiful way. And every single book that I read that ever touched on therapy, like some of my absolute favorite books, also described it in this wonderful way. And they all kind of said that you're not meant to go to therapy to get yourself out of a crisis. We're not firefighters. We are preventative doctors. We're there as to stop you from getting to that state. And I guess I was so charged with like trying to figure out how I could be ready to do this thing. It was just all consuming my being. How can I get better? How can I get better? How can I get better? So I guarantee my success with this amazing opportunity that I have, this amazing product. And therapy to me, when I looked at it and I was 21 or 22, I'm about to go through a serious life change. I just moved to a new city. I knew that I was going to quit my job in 7 or 8 months. I knew that I was going to start working 80-hour weeks. I knew that I was going to be completely alone. There's going to be no boss to tell me what to do. I was going to be very self-responsible. And I don't have kids. I've never dealt with that level of self-responsibility in my life. I've never been responsible for anything without support. And I just thought a wise man would go to therapy and prepare for this moment, because it's going to be it's going to be mentally harder than anything else that you've ever gone through. And it was like, I don't know what I would have done had I not had this amazing 12 months of work. I did 12 months, both before the company started and then during those early times of it. Because, there was other stuff going on as well. I'm trying to get ready to build a business by understanding myself more and genuinely just becoming a better person to my peers and colleagues and friends that I hang out with, and working through some personal traumas that I'd been through. But I was also navigating a love life and navigating a new city and trying to make connections with people and a place that you've just moved to and no one, and reconnect with family. And like there was lots of things there. And yeah, therapy was amazing. I mean, I still go to this day. I started going again in the last 6 months because, once again, not because I'm in a crisis, but because I know that the next 12 months are going to be dramatically different to anything I've ever experienced in my life. And I want to be ready for that. And I want to be emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent throughout this process. I couldn't advocate for therapy more. It's been it's a pivotal part of my story.
Yeah. I think it's one that's very important, was a lot of founders really keep things in rather than putting it out there. Now, I want to touch on the meat of our conversation. Auto editing itself. It was born out of a significant pain point that you observed. Can you kind of walk us through that first aha moment that you're like, this is a business opportunity. Why has no one done this yet? And how did you validate that problem? Apart from your own experiences, how did you go about looking in the market, going like, hey, are you experiencing this problem too? What if I have the solution for it? How did you go about validating that this was a problem that was in the market and you had the solution for this problem?
I was lucky in that the aha moment was me experiencing that pain point, right? I was working for a merchandising studio in Australia, and we were doing merchandise for famous YouTubers like Mr. Beast, for example. We would design and manufacture and sell his clothing. And I was doing customer service tickets, and I was managing a customer service team. And our technology is a customer service technology. And that I would meet with all of our service agents across the Philippines and Australia and the US, and I'd go, what do you spend the most time doing it, Brian? 10 out of 10 of them said, I spend majority of my day editing orders for customers who make a mistake in their address or purchase the wrong size, or they move houses unexpectedly. They want to cancel their order because their son placed it with their mom's credit card. And that was my aha moment. I thought, well, if I've got 10 people that spend the majority of their day clicking some buttons that I expect that we could just give to the customer, like what if we just gave the customer those buttons? What if they had access to our Shopify and click edit and make the change? That was the aha moment. And I remember pulling the data on it from our customer service help desk where all of these emails are getting sent to. And we would get about 2,500 emails every single month to make a change to an address because we're a big brand. And so I was very lucky to find a phenomenal developer through a friend of a friend who's based in Canada, and he built the MVP for us. And then we immediately got validation because, like, I shit you not, we put this product into our customer's hand. We said, hey, here's how to edit your order. Don't contact us anymore. Go away. And with nicer messaging. And the next day, instead of receiving 100 emails, which is what we usually would receive, we received like 2. So we all woke up to what sounds like, it's like, oh, you eliminated some emails, but it was actually life-changing for us. Like we got 40 hours back into our week to do other things. We're no longer behind. And so it was super validating in that we could see it working. And we had like 36,000 customers use it that year. It had massive adoption rate and it worked really neatly. And so the second aha moment was, well, if we do 40 million in revenue on Shopify, and this is what it did for us, I bet it would do the exact same thing for any other brand that does $40 million or more. And so I actually didn't follow a lot of traditional advice to do user testing and things like that. We just built the product and then started building it publicly. And I started posting on LinkedIn every day saying, we just built an order editing tool. This is what it lets customers do. New feature announcement. Now they can apply a discount code without contacting you. New feature announcement. Now they can add more products to their order. New feature announcement. And just like those, that build in public journey, I already had a little bit of an audience on LinkedIn, which is where I post because I've been sharing my story as a young person trying to make his way in the world. And those just started to get more and more viral because the reality was we'd built novel technology that people knew was a pain point in the customer service industry. And they immediately latched to it. So we very quickly got validation, very quickly found product market fit. And that's how we got our first customers. I distinctly remember one day, put a post up on LinkedIn and said, now the order editing app can send customers an email 5 minutes after purchase or an hour after purchase and go, hey, O'Brien, there's space in your package for this product. Do you want to add it to your order in the next 30 minutes? We'll give you 20% off. And it's just another thing that no one had ever done before. And immediately following that, we had the Audi reach out for a demo and we signed them as our first customer. And I danced around the house like a little girl sitting at Paramount because I was like, holy shit, we just made our first dollar, baby. But that was ultimately the journey that we went through and that aha moment for me. I was dying under the burden of needing to change addresses for people and cancel orders that sons had placed on the cards that they shouldn't have.
And you touch on this idea of building in public. Initially, when I was going through the research, it shows that 90% of your leads specifically were from building in public, specifically on LinkedIn that you use. Can you demystify this for our audience in terms of how did you go about strategically using LinkedIn? And what do you see within the space where other founders are trying to build in public but kind of failing? What are they specifically doing that's causing them to fail with regards to building?
Yeah, I mean, if you're building in public, you're telling a story, right? And I always like to start there. And it needs to be a compelling story. No one likes reading a boring book or watching a boring YouTube video. Like you can't just put shit out on the internet and expect people to watch it and listen. Like it needs to be good. And at the crux of that, there's also just are the people who are your audience, like, are they going to care about this? And equally important, are they going to convert into customers? And for us, it worked really neatly at a foundational level. The people that we're trying to sell our software to or get awareness of our product, our top of funnel, are people who work at e-commerce brands. The majority of people who work at e-commerce brands are in their 20s. Broad generalization, but there's a lot of people in their 20s that work at in e-commerce, and they spend a lot of time on the internet, and they grew up with influencers, and they love to watch people win and go through trials and tribulation and relate to people. And there's a loneliness gap and all of these different types of things that I think you can attribute to people in that demographic. And so it made a world of sense to start posting on LinkedIn. And that was like why I decided to take that marketing approach. If it was a bunch of people in their 50s at corporate banks, I would not have chosen LinkedIn as my medium to go to market. That wouldn't have been how I tried to build my business because it just would be slow and painful and probably not make a lot of sense. And I'd also have to write really boring content. No offense. But like the things that people, because like LinkedIn as a platform, right? If you engage with something, everyone knows you're engaging with it. And so you kind of have to post things that people would engage with. And so you can't be super outlandish, and you can even be less outlandish depending on the industry you're in. Lucky e-commerce is quite free flowing and low barrier for cringe or whatever. So it worked for us from an audience level. And then from a storytelling perspective, what I see out on the build and public landscape is a bunch of people gloating about how much money they make and their growth through revenue numbers and very tactile things perhaps to grow, which are fantastic to read as a founder. I love reading those posts because I learn something, but often I'm not the customer. Often for those people, they're posting these numbers and they're building in public, which they are. They're building their business in public, but they're not building their story in public. There's actually no compelling narrative there apart from we're succeeding and our numbers are going up and here's how we do it. What I think is actually more important for your customers and what is a really compelling story to tell that I've found is being relatable, creating a sense of FOMO, showing that you're a winner, and ultimately being honest and not like the e-commerce manager doesn't give a shit about how I grew from $1 to $2 million of revenue. It's completely irrelevant to them. It's not going to cause them to buy, or they're not going to read it because they're not trying to do that for their business. They don't have a business. What they care about is like, I had 40 hours of demo meetings last week, and this is how it feels. Like I'm crumbling. This is exhausting. And they like that because it shows that I'm human, and they probably want to meet and talk and work and partner with people that are human, not robots. The other things that work really well, like that specific post of I had 40 hours of meetings last week, it creates FOMO. If you're an e-commerce manager and I see a founder selling a software to me and he's constantly booked out or she's constantly booked out, my immediate reaction to that mentally is, why is everyone meeting with this person but not me? Right? Like I must be missing something here, and I'm just going to book a call off the basis of everyone seems to be talking to you. Legit, you'd hate to miss out, right? You'd hate to miss out. All of your friends download Tinder and they start going on dates. Well, shit, I better get on this Tinder thing. It's like a very similar thing to that. And I found the best formula for us, both in terms of what's interesting and also for my longevity as a writer, and I do consider I love writing, has always been the framework of this is what we're doing or this is where we're at and this is how it feels. Make it human, make it real, make it raw. People want to read stuff that actually matters, and it's less about 5 strategies to do X, Y, Z, which is what everyone is doing on the internet. And it's more like, hey, I'm an extremely vulnerable person and my life is an open book. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you how these things are, because ultimately it will put me on ground floor with you. And you should realize that I'm like a good person with a good heart, and you want to work with those types of people. Because at the end of the day, the software is good. It's all just about getting eyeballs on it and making sure that we can place trust in the customer's hand and a desire to book a meeting with us.
And beyond the lead generation of it all, how has being so transparent fostered loyalty and trust with your customers and the people that you work with?
It's been such a hack. And I think I knew that before I started, but I didn't actually consider it. People talk a lot about building defense in a business and how brand can build defense. Like people are loyalists to Apple, right? And building in public does the same thing. It's extremely hard to churn from a software when you meet the founder in person. If he flies to your office and meets you, it's going to be quite hard to uninstall this technology because there's a level of guilt and mutual respect and relationship there that you don't want to trash on. And building in public and writing content online and connecting with your customers in that way does a similar thing. I know a lot of it, like a lot of our customers will like our content and comment on it and will follow it and read every post because they're genuinely invested in our journey and they genuinely want to see us win. And part of wanting to see us win and achieve the goals that we talk about so publicly is not leaving us and continuing to work with us and investing back into the relationship that we're also investing into. And it's built this beautiful Great Wall of China around the product that we've built, and that you could come to one of our merchants and say, hey, we built the exact same technology and it's 50% cheaper. And I don't think they'd reply to your email because they love working with the audio editing team because we've got flair and we've got personality and we're people that they know and they trust and they actually have fun working with. And you can't put a dollar amount on that. Maybe you could say it's free and you might be able to get them, but you really can struggle to put a dollar amount on. I actually just really love using that piece of technology. And I love the people behind it. You can't rip me out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And the other aspect of building public is this, you're building this brand. So with you, like, for example, you are building the order editing brand, but you're building the Hamish brand as well. How is those two brands collided to create this founder, and how has that helped with regards to growing this audience that you are growing within, let's say, the clients? And as well as a founder now, you run a company, you're employing people. How has that brand helped you acquire talent as well?
Yeah. I mean, the world's colliding is interesting because it's always been like that. I mean, I started posting on LinkedIn when I was 20 or 21 because my oldest brother was a famous YouTuber. I was like, oh, there's a real power in having an audience. And I'm going to try and start to build my own audience and give myself leverage in my career as a young person. And so I just immediately started telling my story, which at that time was, I'm 20 and I want to be successful in 5 years. And this is all of the work that I'm doing to try and get there. Like, watch me as I read a bunch of books and review the books and summarize the books to signal to the market, this is what I'm learning. All of the side hustles that I'm doing, the public speaking courses that I'm taking. And so there was already this story forming of a motivated young person trying to achieve his dreams. And the auto editing was like it's just a chapter in that story. It's like the hero's journey. It's the inflection point in my life, or when things start to get good or the first challenge starts to happen. I finally have the aha moment. I've got the idea. And it's just been a continuous journey of that, right? And that chapter came into my life. And now it's the dominating factor of the story that I'm telling. It's all about how this business is going and how this is a hero's journey within the hero's journey. And I let them collide freely. I think, I love the fact that we're a founder-led business. I love the fact that my brand imparts on how we all operate as a company. And it helps people self-select those who want to work for us or not, because they ultimately know that they'll be working with me and they know very much so what I'm like. And I also love it because, and it's intentional, because I don't want to build software companies for the rest of my life. That was never the goal. The goal with auto editing, and the reason why I wanted to start a business early, was to achieve financial freedom, so that I didn't need to sell software for a living if I didn't want to, or that I didn't need to go down an executive route at a for-profit company because I had to make an income to sustain my lifestyle. I wanted to start auto editing so that I could stand in the shoes of someone that could get offered $1 million a year or zero and literally see no difference between the two paths, and just take the one that's the most fulfilling. That's like the ultimate dream. And what I imagine that I want to do after auto editing is go lecture at universities and teach and continue to be a student and be an academic. Because that was probably when I was most like, those are probably my role models today, and where I found the most joy and like love in what I did on a daily basis was when I teach. And so when I think about my posting on the internet now, I just think, man, I'm giving myself the world's greatest layup for that future career, for that future career. Like, this is going to be the easiest slam dunk when we sell our business and I go reach out to a university, or I post online that I want to lecture at a university. I think the gates will open because there's all of this history
already.
Right? Exactly. And the hiring side of things has been probably the greatest benefit. It's fantastic and amazing what the revenue has done for us, but we could have achieved that revenue goal in many other ways. Hiring is an entirely different can of worms. It's very hard to get good talent to join your business, and we've been very lucky to get exceptional talent join. And my framework for hiring a lot of the time in the early days was always, who could I hire that the rest of the world, the rest of the industry would go, how the hell did they get that guy? They're like, what the hell? How did this very early stage bootstrap business hire Paul Goldston, who's done 8 years at Shopify, who's like an icon in this industry? And I wanted to have that be the market sentiment, because we're ultimately in the business of marketing. And there's only two ways that you can get those people to join your business. You either raise a bucket load of money from incredible investors, which is always compelling to join a business like that. But I want to own all of this company. I don't want people on my cap table. I want me and my co-founder to be full owners and be independent. So we didn't have that. And then the other option is, similar to customers, you kind of need to create FOMO and have a genuinely compelling reason to join, and for someone to leave their good, stable job to join your risky business. And we did that by signaling virality, by looking like a fun place to work at because we share what we're doing all the time, and by just completely honestly telling the market about how much you're going to learn here and what the benefits are, and not overselling or underselling it, just being very raw of, this is what we're doing and this is how it feels. And if you want that, then you're going to fit in like a glove. And since when we put a post out on the internet to say we're hiring, and 60,000 people would see it, the quality of candidate was dramatically high. Whereas most founders, if you're not posting on the internet, if no one knows about your company, we could sit here and I could rattle off startups in New Zealand or Australia and the US, and you'd go, never heard of. Never heard of. And the same thing works for my business. But if you ask people in e-commerce, a lot of people would be aware of what we do. And there are a lot of companies where they wouldn't. How are you supposed to get good people to find out about what you do, And then equally, if this is the first time they hear about it, how can you get them motivated take an interview and join you. It's very similar. It's very similar to doing inbound sales. It's extremely hard to get an inbound lead to your business. So you need to have marketing chops, and it's the exact same thing for hiring. And we've been so lucky that the audience has dramatically accelerated that. And even still, we still find that the longer we take to hire, the better the quality of candidate we can attract. Because every single day, our audience gets a little bit larger, our credibility grows, and the more we wait, the better that pool becomes, even with all the foundational work that we did in the early days.
Yeah. So you spoke about this desire of wanting to have 100% of this baby that you were cooking. Can you take us through the journey of deciding to bootstrap, and how did that influence your initial product development, your go-to-market strategy, and just your approach overall with the early revenue that when you did start generating? How did bootstrapping influence all those decisions?
Yeah. So the reason why we bootstrapped ultimately started from the goal that we set for this business. Me and my co-founder were quite atypical in that we there's this iconic scene in Breaking Bad where Walter White said at the very start of their business, their meth business, that as soon as we make like $750,000, I'm done, because that's all I need to pay off all of my debts, right? They had a goal, and Jesse was like, I'm going to do that with you. And there's this iconic scene where they're screaming at each other, 2 seasons later. And Jesse's like, you said you would stop at 750,000. And Walter's like, but there's so much more money to be made. And I just remember watching that and being like, screw that. That is awful. Co-founder conflict, getting greedy, running your business for the wrong reasons, all of these different types of things. And when me and my co-founder sat down, we joked about that. And I said, well, what do you want to achieve? Like, what do you want to do here? And Kara said, I don't know if this is my life's work, but I want to make sure that we have a fantastic outcome and that I have enough to kind of retire and things like that. And I said, that's exactly what I want to. And my retirement number is this. And it was maybe $6 or $7 million US. And Kara said, that sounds great. I 100% don't need any more than that either. Let's make that our number. And so we immediately wrote down in a book that Hamish and Kara are building a $20 million business, right? Because that's what we'd reasonably need to sell to get that type of outcome. And so our sights were set, and we both committed to that. And then you can think about how you might achieve that outcome, right? We could own 50% of it each and sell for 20 million or 18, 16, whatever, and we would get that. Or we could own, and we'd need to be doing somewhere between $2 and $4 million a year, let's say, to get that type of outcome. And I was like, I think we could do that in 2.5, 3 years. I think we could achieve that fast. And then I go, okay, well, what happens if we raise some money and we each own 40% of it, or 35, because we're going to give some equity away to employees? Then the outcome is dramatically higher. Yeah. And the time frame to get there is longer. I just remember thinking, even if we had $1 million, I don't think we would hit these revenue goals any faster. Like, it would probably be the exact same journey, but it would have the added layer of pressure from investors, someone telling us what to do, or someone that we have to report to. And that investor ultimately, it would be quite hard to raise money if they know that we're not trying to build a unicorn. Because most investors want to see you go for this massive outcome. When they hear the founders just want to comfortably retire, have enough, they're probably going to turn the other way and go, I'm not giving you my money. You're crazy. There are so many better ways for me to place those funds. And so our goals were set, and the way we were going to do it was defined. And so bootstrapping just became the norm and the must do. And how we navigated it, we were in a very fortunate position in that my co-founder had another business that successfully generated passive income for him, and his wife now runs it, and it still supports him financially. So he's never really needed to draw a salary, which makes things a lot easier financially. And similar, I made sure that before I quit my job and went full time, that I had $25,000 in my bank from saving while I was working in previous jobs. Spent 2 years being I'm going to live super frugally because I'm going to need a bank balance for when I quit. When I go all in this thing, I'm not going to make any money. And so we had a nice 6 months of not earning any money, not earning any salary, just storing away the income the business was generating. And that ultimately led us to be, it was the financial responsibility that has kept us being able to grow. But it's been hard. I remember going through periods of time last year where every single month we'd add maybe $10,000 of monthly recurrent revenue on a subscription basis. And it was an amazing situation to be in, because you look at it and you're like, cool, I could hire a new employee every single month. Pay them 10 grand, and just start stacking talent. And we did that for a little bit. And what ended up happening was we ended up having $50,000 on payroll, but we only had 100 grand in the bank account. And that's not a very safe situation to be in, because if you have a couple of bad months or the lights go out or whatever, you've only got 2 months of safety net to pay everyone. That is not very financially responsible. And so we've learned lessons on the way, right, on how to operate in a fiscally responsible way. And it has been harder. It's been like slightly slower. There's been pain points. We work extremely long days because I still sell, onboard, and do so much work that probably could be outsourced to good talent. But, I don't mind. Love the independence. I love that we're a small organization. At the end of the day, I'm 24. I've never managed a team of high-performing people in my life. I've never been a CEO. I've never started a business. And it's been dramatically easier to grow into my role and get good at my job when there's been a steady progression of like, we have 3 people, now we have 4, now we have 5.
Yeah.
And I gradually just improve instead of I'm 24 and I manage 20 people and they're all 10 or 15 years older than me because we raise a whole bunch of money and we can afford them. And I'm dying as CEO because I've never done this before and I don't know how to run a sheet and like all of this stuff. It's given me grace to be a work in progress, and I've really loved that.
Yeah, and that buys you the necessary time to actually learn and make mistakes and then fix those mistakes, which is a very good place to be in. Yeah, because then you don't have that excess pressure of someone breathing down your neck going, how much revenue are you making? We're not reaching the targets that we've set out for you, which is a good thing. So I want to touch on the other value proposition that you guys offer to your customers, which is the upscaling opportunity. Can you kind of run us through how that specifically works? For if let's say I'm buying something on Shopify and I'm getting shoes, how do you go about upscaling me as the customer in terms of buying something else?
Yes. If you like the basic level, if you make a mistake at checkout, if you buy the wrong size or the wrong address, you're going to contact customer service to make the change for you. And it would be extremely inappropriate for a customer service agent to change your address and at the same time go, hey, like, are you sure you don't want to add this to your order? It's 20% off. Like, you're just going to go, like, you're not going to open that email. You're going to delete it. Like, they solved your problem. Goodbye. Like, that's just not what you can really do as a human being. Maybe you've got a savvy salesman online. I don't know. But it's just not how it works. When you use our app in contrast, you're editing your address, but while you're editing address, on the right-hand side of your peripherals is a product offer with a big blue banner saying 20% off at a countdown timer and add this to your order. This looks good with this. Other customers bought this. And it's now your idea. It was your idea to buy that product. It was a lot easier. We're just displaying things that are compelling to you. And we can be smart and logical about those recommendations. So that already converts more often than a customer service agent would. You're already making some extra dollars. Alongside that, we're the first thing you see after you buy. We're going to put a block onto your confirmation emails and your confirmation pages. And so as soon as you finish your checkout and you're in your like giddy dopamine mode from shopping online and you've just spent your dollars and it wasn't that much and you're now looking at a slightly smaller price and it's broken into chunks, right? Go math. Like I spent $100 at checkout and there's a $50 offer. You kind of forget that you spent $100 before. It's no longer, it's not a $150 purchase, just a $50 purchase. Yeah. And that's how that works, right? And so we'll show things on that page. We'll show great offers. You missed this. This goes with that. I saw you viewing this on the site, those types of things. Here's an exclusive deal for you. And so that also gets traction. And then the most compelling thing that we do is the proactive. Those are all just like surfaces sitting on pages that you're going to see in your buying journey. This is like, hey, I'm going to reach out to O'Brien and tell him about this thing. And they'll send a direct email marketing campaign or a direct SMS campaign. And they'll tap you on the shoulder right before it ships, right after you buy. And they'll let you know like, hey, you just spent $10 on shipping and you've got empty space in your box. I could very easily just slip this t-shirt or cap in there that you are viewing on the website and I'll give you 20% off if you help us save on your shipping. And so that messaging of like, again, Homo, I've got a package shipping. There's room in it for another item that I did want and I might buy sometime in the future. Why don't I save some money now and just put it in my order? And that's how these brands like a Hexclad or a Meshki or an Opoly are making $50,000 or $60,000 a month through the order editing channel alongside solving all of their customer experience pain points. It's a massive driver that's adding a good like 40 cents to $1 onto e-commerce brands' orders.
So you are kind of currently thriving within the Shopify ecosystem. Have you ever thought about expanding outside of the Shopify ecosystem? And how does that look like for you? What do you feel initially would be some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that expansion will look like for you?
It would be so nonsensical to build for other platforms right now because we've touched 0.5% of our total addressable market in Shopify. We've barely gone to market, right? We're 18 months young. And there's so much room to grow there and the product's already built for them and we can just start tearing through that channel and benefiting from scale. Inversely, I selfishly, and I think it would be really exciting and challenging to start from zero again. I love going from 0 to 1. So I'm like, oh, maybe we should build it for Centra or for Ecommerce or commerce tools or Salesforce, purely because I just love the process of knowing who we are and then changing that and converting your first customer. Like you're just going back to square one in your business. But it's nonsensical. It would make sense a little bit down the line when you've started to tap out your market in Shopify. But the reality is, like when you build a novel product and you're first to market, your single most important job is to get your wedge into that pie, dive it deep as possible, and then start spreading it out and start owning that market. Because if you own 50% of the market share before competitors come in, you're probably going to have a monopoly.
Yeah.
Monopolies are net positive for your business commercially. Like everyone wants a monopoly, not customers, but every business wants a monopoly. And so that's like your single most important goal, right? And you should only really start putting your wedge into different pies when that potentially is tapping out and it's growing relatively slower than you could by hitting that new sales channel again, or that new total addressable market of, I'm going to go after the Salesforce e-commerce market. And selfishly, I mean, like, one of the, like, there are many reasons why I love what I do. One of them is what we've talked about, and that we're building a business that will ultimately like provide for me and my future family. Yeah. The other reason why I love what we do is this like egotistical dream of that in 5 years, auto editing will be everywhere. Like every single time you buy something online, the merchant, the seller will give you grace to make a change to it because it just makes sense. Like why would they not? If they could, they would. And my ego would love for the entire world to go, Hamish McKay started that thing. Like he was the founder of the auto editing software that is on every single online checkout. Of course, that would be cool for me. That's my geeky little business legacy, It's really not that cool, but like it would be neat to know that when Apple uses this, that I got it there, Like it's just a selfish thing. But ultimately it's not going to be that way. We'd have to build our company for a lot longer. And candidly, I love the goal that me and my co-founders set. And our goal caps us far earlier than that point would happen. And so that's kind of how I think about expanding. It's probably going to be someone else's job to do it.
And if you could distill your current journey as a founder into like one single valuable advice for someone, what would that be?
It would be to be self-described as an intentional person. And the reason why I say that is a lot of businesses come and die by execution or by not doing the logical things that would help you achieve your goals. And if you're an intentional person, if you intentionally go about every single day and how you're building your company, you will do those things. Because an intentional person does the right thing by their business. And the ultimate reason why I say that is I think the number one hack or experience or thing that I've learned that's guided me through this process and will continue to guide me for the rest of my life, the lesson that I've learned was when I was 15 years old and I decided that in 5 years, I was going to represent my country at the World Rowing Championships. I had this like goal that was 5 years away. I literally couldn't even try to achieve it in the next 3 or 4. I just had to work to get there and be ready for it. And I went through this incredible journey of just backwards mapping what I would need to do to guarantee I get to go to the World Champs. And I spent 5 years working my ass off, intentionally training to something that was in the distant future, and it just progressively got closer and closer. And at the end of that 5 years, I was ready. I was the best sweep horseman in the country. And it was because I'd done this like long extended period of work focused on a goal that was in the distant future, because you can change a lot in 5 years. You can run Ironmans in 5 years. You could run 2 Ironmans in 5 years. You could be a total couch potato and you could be a bodybuilder in 5 years. Like no word of a lie, And that lesson, like I experienced the outcome of that work for a long extended period of work of discipline. And I took that to my company as well. I was 20. I watched my oldest brother absolutely smash it and have an incredible lifestyle and build this life that he wanted and that he deserved. And I thought, I'm going to be there in 5 years. And, I hadn't had a business idea at that point. I just knew that at some point along the way, I'm going to have a business idea and it's going to make it happen. And what do you know? I read so many freaking books. I studied so hard at university. I listened to so many founders and entrepreneurs. I did so many coffee chats with mentors and with people who were where I wanted to be, that in 2 years, when I was working customer service and I was actively asking questions to prompt for ideas for a business, and I saw an idea I didn't just go, oh, that would be a great idea for a business. I flippin' built the thing. I threw money at it. And I sacrificed like 2 years of my life working 9 to 5 and then working from 5 to midnight on my company behind the scenes to get to this position. And I never would have done that had I not had this 5-year goal and this backwards tracking of how am I going to guarantee that I get there. I think that's just the most important process to go through as a person who wants to shift their current state is where do I want to be in 5 years? What steps can I take along that way to guarantee I become that person at that time? And then you just have to do the thing. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like what that journey looks like, I could have said, I want to be an Olympic rower in 5 years, or I want to be an influencer or a celebrity or an actor. And on that path, like let's talk about an influencer, for example, on that path, I'd have to go, well, I have to get more and more famous and put myself out there online and grow an audience. And if that was what I said, and I looked at that path, I'd go, actually, I don't want to be an influencer anymore. And so it gives you clarity on again, the intentionality of your life of whether or not the path you're on is actually correct for you. Because if you don't like the steps you have to take to get to this dream state, then it's actually not a dream state. You don't want to be there.
Yeah, definitely. And as we reach the end of our conversation, which I've enjoyed so much, there's probably the most important question. How do people find you? If they want to get in contact with you, where can we find you?
Yeah, your best channel for me is my LinkedIn profile. It's just Hamish McKay, McKay, Hamish. I post every day there. I continue to document our story online. I love writing. I hope you enjoy my writing. But yeah, please do drop me a note on there if you did watch the podcast, and happy to connect.
Perfect. So once again, thank you so much for being here. Enjoyed our conversation. And that's all from us, and look forward to the next episode of From Garage to Growth.